Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Most Merciful. I'd like to welcome you, dear viewers, to another in our series, In the Light of Islam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May Allah's peace and blessings be on each and every one of you. In our segment, or in our program, In the Light of Islam, we answer questions which our viewers have about various Islamic issues. We welcome our non-Muslim viewers to write in. Please don't feel shy, about writing in. Any questions you have, we'll be glad to answer. We have no qualms, no worries. No matter what you think, how insignificant or silly the question you might think it is, if you have a question you'd like to know, please don't hesitate to write in to us, and we will answer them for you. You may write in to me, Dr. Bilal Phillips, at P.O. Box 111, Sharjah Television, UAE. Sharjah, UAE. Now, in our previous session, we were looking at some questions which had been faxed in to me from Sharjah. And the question, the person was asking about the idea of Islamic view on the cloning of animals. And the person asked about this issue of cloning a pig. You found that is it possible? Because in Islam, creation of life forms is in God's hands. So how could one form a cell and create life from it? How do they create life? As I mentioned earlier, the scientists that are involved in this are not creating life. They are working with living material and manipulating it, as we do on a gross level in our homes, on our animals, etc. They're doing the same thing on a molecular level, on the level of, on the cellular level, the level of the cells. It's not creating life. Creating life would be, what is a cell composed of? It's composed of certain chemicals, carbon, oxygen, hydrogen, etc., etc., etc. You get portions of this, put it in a thing, stir it up, heat it, do whatever you want to it, and make it into a living organism. Impossible. Humans have never done it, and they will never do it. The most that we're able to do is to manipulate. It's just like when the first in vitro fertilization so successfully done, the big thing in the newspaper was test tube babies. That's what they came to be called. Scientists are creating life in a test tube. No, these are test tube babies. They're not creating. All they're doing is they're taking sperm of a man, ovum of a woman, putting it in a dish. Usually it's a petri dish, and they're combining them there, and then letting them go to a certain stage, and then putting them back at the womb of the woman. So we're not dealing with creation of life here at all. Similarly, in cloning, this is not creation of life. Cloning is sort of artificially, actually cloning is supposed to mean that one makes an identical copy of an existing organism. This is cloning. We do this in the plant kingdom all the time, for tulips and these and roses and this type of thing. The people who are involved in producing flowers, etc., they do this all the time. Now, in terms of cloning a pig, or cloning a sheep, Dolly was the first successful effort, on the level of higher animals. But this had been done with frogs and others before. I mean, how do we look at this? As I said, what is happening here is not even true replication, because in the case of a twin, you have true replication. That initial cell of life splits into two. So you have two children who are genetically, identical. They look the same. Their features, everything about them seems, but they're two different individuals. So when this happens, when a split takes place like this, then different life comes into each portion. A different soul goes in. So the question which the question that goes on to ask, how does the soul enter the cell if a human is clothing a pig? Well, it's no different from the soul entering the fetus of a child in the womb of a person, the human being, or if that child had to be developed partially outside the womb before placing it in the womb. These things, Allah is all great, all powerful. Human beings cannot create, they can only manipulate. They call it creation, but it's only manipulation. And the soul, the life force of the animal or the human being will be placed in just as if they developed within the womb of their parent. In quite a few religions of the world, the concept of reincarnation is strongly considered. For example, Hinduism, one of the sects of the Jews. Well, I don't know what sect that is. What does Islam say about this? How could such a thing or belief have been? From where did it emerge? Well, the concept of reincarnation. Of course, from a Islamic perspective, this is looked at as being satanic in thought, in reality. It's from Satan, it's not from God, because reincarnation does not exist. And in fact, the cases, which happen in places like India and Lebanon, because the Druze, D-R-U-Z-E, or perhaps this is where the person thought it was Jews. It's the Druze, they are of Lebanon. They also have this belief. Their sect has the belief in reincarnation. Also, Buddhism has it, which is a branch of Hinduism. Now, this belief developed as a means of explaining suffering. A person lives what appears to be a good life, and they suffer. They find suffering in their lives. How to explain this? Where did this come from? To attribute it to God, people felt, well, this is not fair. Why would God want to do this to a person, to children and to others? Why should they suffer? So, the best explanation for it is that probably they had a previous life. In the previous life, they did evil, so it is coming up and catching up with them now. Their karma is catching up with them now. Now they have to pay for it. So when you see somebody suffering, you don't have to worry. You don't have to feel pity for them, because they're only paying back. They're only having to deal with the crimes that they committed in a previous life. Of course, what this develops and what this encourages is a kind of a callous outlook, where you look at a person suffering in the worst way and say, oh, it's his fault. He caused it in a previous life. In Islam, when you die, there's no coming back. Those experiences in places like Lebanon amongst the Druze, as I said, in India amongst the Hindus, Sri Lanka amongst the Buddhists, and India and China and Japan amongst the Buddhists, etc., where a child, from time to time, you find children, in the early ages of their lives, 5 years old, 6 years old, whatever, claiming that they're not who they are, that in fact they are such and such a person who lives in such and such a city or town, and this happened to them, whatever. And when they go and investigate these, they find, wow, yes, there was such a person who lived in such a building, had parents by this name, so and so, and they died, etc., etc. You find these cases occurring mainly amongst these people who believe in reincarnation. And this really is from the world of Satan, the world of the jinn. What happens is that some of the jinn have this ability to come into human minds, to insert thoughts and concepts and ideas, etc., where a person feels these are their own recollections, when in fact they're not. It's like people who under hypnosis start to talk about all kinds of wild things, Edgar Casey, the sleeping prophet, and others. These are from the influence of the jinn, the world of the jinn, which can affect and contact our world and create certain confusion, etc., which guide and lead people